Do y'all remember this ad from like more than 15 years ago? Language professors hate him. Doctors' discovery revealed the secret to speaking any language in just 10 days. Watch this shocking video and discover how you can rapidly learn any language in just 10 days using the secret linguistic secret. And I remember when this ad came out, it was pretty effective and it was a long time ago. Remember Google Plus? They don't have that anymore. So I probably just need to create another version of this ad, banks hate him and then put, my picture or someone who looks like me, I don't know, Tom Cruise in here. And then just say something like YouTubers discover revealed the secret to paying off any debt in just 10 days. Watch this shocking video and discover how you can rapidly learn how to pay off any debt in just 10 days using the sneaky Excel secret, right? And that's what we're gonna do today, pay off debt using Excel, okay? Using something called the velocity method. Now, if you wanna know the history of this debt payoff strategy, we used to call it something else, right? And then there's a state called Illinois that sent a cease and desist letter to another YouTuber called the Kwok Brothers and then fined them 20K. And they're like, you can't use the word banking because you're not a bank. It's kind of like the health department telling, somebody called the Restaurants Consulting Group LLC, you can't use the word restaurant. You're not a restaurant. And so basically, we don't use that word anymore. So we just call it the velocity method. And I'm not even kidding about this. Just type in Kwok Brothers, State of Illinois, Department of Financial Professional Regulation, or whatever they call it. And they really hate that word. Okay. But yes, we're going to use something called the velocity method. In fact, I should say governments hate them too, right? Governments hate them because they're colluding with the banks. That's why they have to fine you for using the term. It's like Voldemort, Like I don't know much about the Harry Potter universe, but my understanding is that you can't say his name or nobody can say his name, right? Yeah, same thing with this method. You can't say it. So I just call it the velocity method. Okay. And what is the secret method? Well, it's just a debt payoff strategy that make it easy to pay off debt by simply not saving money. And we're going to use a line of credit to do that. So the way that the average American banking style works is that you get paid and then you have these expenses and then you put your leftover money in your checking and savings, right? And so if you take a look at the expense breakdown right here, what we do is we list every single debt as its own line item because this is a debt payoff strategy. And what we see here is we have a lot of debt, right? 6 credit cards, an auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. And then not only that, we have our personal expenses not tied to debt. Okay, so these are things, just a rounded figure of how much do we need to pay to live every single month, right? So we'll just say $2,000. People are more exact than I am, but the most important thing is that we pay off the debt because once the debt is gone, then you'll have a lot more cash. Then you'll get to see the true potential of your income, right? And how much you can save. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have the same income, same expenses, okay? And then we're going to do something crazy that most people have not thought of, right? Which is not save money. So let me tell you something. People have two contradictory ideas in their brain. Number one, oh, I should pay off debt, right? But number two, I need to save money. Well, how do you pay off debt if you save money? So you gotta this is why the banks are winning because what's the easiest way to get someone to not do something is just give them two contradictory messages. And a confused mind always does nothing, right? And so because we're not going to save money, what we're going to do is we're going to use our money to dump it into something called a line of credit and increase our cash flow. So if you don't know what a line of credit is, it's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again, right? Line of credit, there's something called a HELOC, home equity line of credit, personal line of credit, business line of credit if you're running a business, but it's all the same pretty much, except for a credit card. A credit card is technically a form of line of credit, but it's a little bit inflexible, right? Like there's a reason why nobody ever puts their entire paycheck into a credit card because when you put your entire paycheck into a credit card, that some of that money is stuck, right? A lot of people don't talk about this because I see in the internet, oh, you could use a credit card. I would say it's kind of, but not really. It's kind of like asking me how do I play baseball with the basketball. I think they even had a movie called Basketball. You guys remember that? I never even watched that. I remember base get ball, right? Remember this one with the creators from South Park? Yeah, basketball. I don't even know what it was about, to be honest. But yeah, okay. So, anyways, back to my point about how banks hate me. But yeah, okay. So people say use a credit card, and I'm like, yeah, but not really, right? So I don't say use a credit card. I say use a personal or home equity line of credit. And the reason why most of you don't have a personal or home equity line of credit and a credit card is because you think, right, that you can get a credit card because it was heavily marketed to you. And people think, oh, I'm not, I can't be convinced to do something just simply by watching advertisements. And that's simply not true. I mean, look at all the GLP-1 drugs that people, I've never even heard of GLP-1 drugs, right? GLP-1. And then let me look at the celebrities who've endorsed it, right? Look at that, Oprah and whoever, all these. There's a ton. Is that Charles Barkley? Serena. Why do you think the whole population has been hooked on GLP-1 drugs? Because it's heavily marketed. Now, when's the last time you've seen a commercial for a HELOC or a personal line of credit? So, don't come to me with that nonsense that you can't get a line of credit because you got a credit card because it was heavily marketed towards you. And, some of you, I hate to say this, are probably using GLP-1 drugs because of the statistics that I've read. But yeah, you know what I mean? When you have good marketing will convince you that it was your idea when it was actually the company's idea. You see what I'm saying? But anyways, all right, so back to my point. So how do you get a line of credit, right? Let's say you have making good money and you have a little bit of money, cash left over or cash flow left over. Can you go to a bank and apply for a line of credit and just say, hey, give me $100,000 home equity line of credit? The answer to that is no. Why? Because banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. We have to understand that, right? See, if we want to get a line of credit, we had to get the credit before we ever needed all of this debt. Because what is we have to understand the bank's point of view. See, some people think, well, if I just have a good credit score, that's all I need, right? No, 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 no. Credit score is one part of the equation, but I could even have a good credit score with no income, which means I'm going to get denied because people who have no income need money. You see what I'm saying? So banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay, we have to remember that. Now, why do I demonstrate this with a free and clear line of credit? Because I know there are some of you out there who when they see this, they think, oh my goodness, if I just had a line of credit, this would have saved me. And that's true. But you have to understand there's an order of operations to this game. Banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? And it's actually easier to understand the concept if you understand, you know, that if you had a free and clear line of credit at this moment, what it could do for you. But you won't get it. Okay? You won't get it. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. All right. So now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to move some of these debts into the line of credit using called the cash flow index. If you don't know what that is, basically a formula of the balance of your debt divided by the monthly payment, right? So this is 5,000 divided by 175, balance divided by payment, and then you do this for all of your debts, right? All of your debts. Okay, you do this for all of your debts, and then you think of this as a ranking or sorting system. So what does this mean? Well, if you have low numbers, let's say below 50, it means you'll get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of cash flow for paying off the debt. Now, if you have these high numbers, that means that you get very little bang for your buck. So, I always have to just show you this $250,000 mortgage. If I pay this mortgage off first, I'm only getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow, right? 250,000 for 1,100 bucks? No way. But, okay, if I give $30,000 or 35,000, that's pretty much the same amount in terms of cash flow. So why wouldn't I pay the credit cards off first? I have heard, somebody told me there was this thing called the pill method. that said pay off your mortgage first, and I was like, blew my mind. Why would you? Okay, just from an interest rate standpoint, why wouldn't you just pay off your credit cards first, right? The reason I like to teach the cash flow index is that I know that debt situations can get really tricky. Okay. And the reason I know that is because I've had people over the years just randomly email me their budgets. And you can see something like this one. This is a real life scenario, 22 debts. And I was like blown away. And you know what's really crazy? The person who sent me this actually followed the instructions without me telling this person and did the cash flow index. And there's like 22 debts. And this is the only way I've known how you could really organize your debts easy and make the debt payoff really simple, right? Now, there are some exceptions I might make, like 0% loans or lines of credit in the temporary 0% interest period, little things like that. But this is like, how I start off organizing paying off debts, cash flow index. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is pay off the low cash flow index numbers. And I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. And that's $92,000. All right. So $92,000. So we move it into the line of credit. Okay. Now take a look at this here. This is going to blow your mind. All right. This is the secret that banks, quote, hate you for. Okay. Look at this. Once you move that debt into the line of credit card payments go away. Just did a simple balance transfer. And look at this. The income is the same. Right? The income is exactly the same, yet somehow this 460 turns into over $3,500. How do we do that? This is the financial equivalent of turning water into wine, right? Turning water into wine. In fact, you know what? I kind of want some wine right now, even though I'm not even a wine drinker. Just the fact that I mention it, words are very powerful. Water into wine, right? So this is water. This is wine. Same income. Same income. All right. So now we're going to do the final step is we're going to turn our entire paycheck into the line of credit, right? So think about this, okay? Usually the payment on the line of credit is like, the interest rate time divide by 12 times the balance, right? Or the average daily balance. So that's kind of like the minimum, right? And so if you really think about it, okay, if you put this entire $8,000 paycheck into the line of credit, you're always going to make the minimum payment. So you don't have to worry because you're not saving money. And when you dump your entire paycheck into the line of credit, you'll pretty much always make the minimum payment. And you see how easy that is? All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go ahead and get my previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus our cash flow. And that's how we calculate the next month's balance, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and do this. Multiply it by the interest rate, and then you divide by 12. And look at that. Look at that. That's the interest that we pay for the month. So think about this. Let's say the minimum payment is this interest figure right here, or maybe possibly a little bit more, because sometimes it could be like 1 or 2% plus the interest or something like that. If I dump this $8,000 paycheck in and $601 is my minimum payment, am I not always going to make it, assuming that I do have the income, right? Well, of course we will, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then we're going to go also right here, 29, 29 months. It's been paid off, right? So 29 months. And then this is going to be $92,000 of credit card debt. Okay, 92,000. All right, so now we have an auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. Okay, so auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. So this is what I'm gonna do here. We have a loan calculator, 29, 29, 29. Oopsie, 29. So that's the current month. Now, I know that how the average American brain works, right? I remember watching a TikTok of, these young people who are super, whenever I watch TikTok, I understand Dave Ramsey's brain now, where it's like, yeah, right. And, Dave Ramsey's super rich. Business makes over 300 million a year, right? So he's a smart dude. Like anyone who says Dave Ramsey's wrong or Dave Ramsey's an idiot, I've already lost your respect because Dave Ramsey has made more money and has been more successful in real estate than I've ever been, right? Like whatever I did, in my life is peanuts compared to him. Like I paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, but you know, he's made over 300 million in 1 year, so that's like a gajillion mortgages in a year, right? So I have a lot of respect for Dave Ramsey, even though I kind of make fun of him a while. But my point is this, right? When I watch TikTok, my Dave Ramsey like brain turns on when he talks about TikTok, right? Because these TikTok people always focus on the interest rate, right? And it's like, let me tell you why Snowball doesn't work. Oh my goodness. Let me pay off the 7% loan because it's the highest interest rate. Okay. Now you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. But I'm going to tell you why I'm going to pay off this 3%. It's not necessarily because it's 3%. It's because of this low cash flow index number, right? And then the reason why this cash flow index number is so low is because you're paying 24 grand for $800. But take a look at this. If I'm going to pay the student loan, I'm actually paying more money for less cash flow, right? More money, less cash flow. So let's pay less money, more cash flow, all right? So that's what we're going to do, folks. All right. So I'm going to do this plus 24626.02. And then I am going to do this. And this is going to be $4,342.03 in cash flow. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. And, minus 4342.03. And then we're going to go ahead and highlight here, right? So that's when we paid off that auto loan. So 35 months, it's all paid off. Woohoo. All right. Alrighty then. All right. So now it's 92 plus 46. So that's 138K. 138K. And then now we had the student loan and the mortgage. So let's see, this is 0, is 35. Again, follow that cash flow index again. Now, am I saying completely ignore the interest rate? No, we kind of have to pay attention. So as a general rule, if the loan interest rate is higher than the line of credit interest rate, it's completely safe to move. Now, when it's lower, we have to be a little bit smarter, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this. Regardless of what the interest rate of the loan is, okay, even if the line of credit interest rate is higher, if you do something called sweeping, I call it sweeping, where you take a piece of the loan and move it into line of credit, the line of credit interest rate is almost, I'm not going to say completely, I'll say almost negligible, right? And I've done demonstrations like this before where, I was saying, hey, if you use a 1% line of credit and an 15% line of credit, given the same conditions, it's almost going to make a difference. Like this one right here, $8,000, 1%. Okay, we paid 16 grand in interest. Now let's crank it up to 15%. Oh, all right. Does this even move? Yeah, okay. My computer must be slow right now. It's because banks hate me and they're hacking me. No, I'm just kidding. 19 grand. See what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that and take our GLP-1. Dang, Charles Barkley looking skinny, ain't he? And why Serena Williams? Is that Venus or Serena? I don't even know because I don't follow tennis. But why is she taking those? Like she should be like burning fat, like doing tennis workouts because they're all hardcore athletes, right? But even athletes become lazy after they retire. In fact, being a retired athlete is kind of like a death sentence. Like I keep hearing from like statistics about the NFL about, once you're out of the NFL, you're broke in like 2-3 years. You might have some good money while you're there, but you're broke after 2 or 3 years. So maybe after you get out of the NFL, maybe you buy a sweet like life insurance policy or something like that. Or is there an equivalent of annuity when you're in like your 20s and 30s so that you just like buy an annuity? Like I remember, I think annuities only apply to like people when like they're 55 or older or something like that. But something where like you'll get an income stream for the rest of your life. And then yeah, is that called the lottery too? No, it's not because you'll probably be dead in like 2 to 3 years. No joke too. but even though I'm joking. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back here. So what was he talking about? I don't know. I just like to ramble on and on because that's what I do at Crane Atlanta Mentorship. And by the way, I remember when I first started this channel, people were like, "Are you really Korean? Or do I have to be Korean to join?" I'm like, "What are you joining? I really suck at marketing this group. Like, I'm gonna be totally blunt. Like, I probably need to market this group a little bit better and say what my offerings are, but at the same time, I'm like one of those people who say, Hey, if you really want it, you'll reach out to me. Right. But I probably need to revamp my strategy, especially with this strategy, this channel, because, even though I get good watch time, I've been really bad at giving calls to action. All right. So, anyways, all right, back to my point here. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be lazy and then move this entire loan into a line of credit, even though the interest rate's slightly lower. But as I said before, if you're using a high interest rate line of credit, dealing with a low interest rate loan, and you want to just kind of do the safe thing, just pay off the loan in small chunks, right? That's what you're going to do. And then you just do it over and over again, and it'll be fine for the most part. All right. So now we move the student loan into line of credit, student loan payment gone. Well, blam. Okay. Now we have $4,806 of cash flow, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. So we're going to copy and paste this here and then update this cash flow 4806.46. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go show you that in 42 months, this was paid off. And I'm all right, 42 months, 138 plus 40, 178. Okay. And then I'm going to do this right here, 178K. And then mortgage, all right, the mortgage in 42 months, what's the balance? It's 233. Okay. And so now, like I said before, you could use a line of credit to pay off the loan, but if there's an interest rate difference, especially with the 30-year mortgage, best do it in chunks, right? So why the 30-year mortgage is because if you increase the term, the payment goes down, right? So why is the payment so low for a 30-year mortgage is because of that long term, okay? And then a long term gives you a relatively high cash flow index, which means if you move this $233,000 from 4% to, let's say, an 8% loan, you're only getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow, right? And that's a time where the interest rate actually matters. I've done the calculations, okay? And I'll show you what I mean by that. So you have two options. Number one, you could just put your money directly into the loan, right? It's called extra payments. And, I say, hey, you don't need this line of credit stuff if you do extra payments, right? But extra payments is, it's kind of like going to the gym in January. Like people make all these New Year's resolutions and say they're going to go to a gym in January. And there's a reason why the gym in January is the cheapest option, because nobody goes, right? So they're selling all these memberships hoping you never come. And that's how they become profitable, right? The same thing with loans. There's a reason why the loan interest rate is lower than the line of credit interest rate, because the loan is a product that's purposely designed to be inconvenient to overpay it, right? That's why nobody overpays loans. It's the same thing where nobody overpays credit cards, right? Overpaying a credit card is inconvenient, but let's do it with the line of credit, okay? And I'm going to show you right here that we just put all the details in, that even with the 15% line of credit, we'll pay this off in 3.6 years, 19 grand. Now, here's the other thing too. If we use 30%, okay, look at that. It's only 23 grand. So we could be, I'm not saying, get a 30% line of credit, not at all. What I'm saying is, yes, interest rate matters, but not as much as you think it does. What's the most important thing? It's the debt payoff order, right? Just pay it off. And the more the debt you pay off, the more banks will happily offer you a line of credit. But 30% line of credit. Now, if I move this to 8, right, it's like 18, okay? So ideally, we'd be using the lowest interest rate line of credit, okay? Of course you should, but don't let that like scare you, and especially if you're doing small chunks. Now, let me just show you this, okay? If I use a 30% line of credit, you could see that, it's relatively a low amount. If we're doing small chunks and we're paying that small chunk over and over again, you put your paycheck in, expenses out. Now let's move this $233,000 loan into a 30% line of credit. And look at this. Look, oh my goodness, 1.5 million in interest. You might as well declare bankruptcy if this happens, you know? Like if you end up paying 1.5 million in interest, you might as well just declare bankruptcy and just walk away. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you legal advice, but what I'm saying is this: don't be stupid and move the loan into the line of credit. Okay? Especially if it's higher interest rate, and especially 30%. But if you do small chunks and repeatedly pay off those small chunks over and over again, that 30% is not going to be a big deal. But when you move that entire loan into a line of credit, that's going to be a big deal, right? And so now let's just do this. So 3.6 years, 3.6 years, we're all paid off. All right, so now let's just go back here, 0, and then it'd be 42 divided by 12 plus 3.6. And then 7.1 years, debt-free. Debt-free. Yeah. Language professors hate him. Actually, no, you know what? Banks hate him. That's what it is. Banks, yeah, let me rewrite that. Banks hate him. OMG. Banks hate him, right? So, yeah. Anyways, all right, so if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to type in the comment box below, banks hate me, right? Banks hate me because I have the secret method. YouTubers discovery revealed the secret to paying off debt in just 10 days. Watch this shocking video. This is a shocking video. I need to get a Google Plus account, or was it called Google Plus? Remember when Google tried to make their own social network? Yeah, that's what this was a long time ago before it died out. All right, well, that's it for today, folks. This is Korean Lanta Mentorship here with another video. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Right. So don't forget. Anyways, don't forget to write in the comment box below. Banks hate me. That's how I know you made it to the end of the video.